last 3 years I'm working on a single product. So I start collecting, and then without giving it a much of a name, I decided to put my PPTs today. So Vaibhavji, can I present now? Can I show my PPT now? Hello?
Yes, you can present.
Okay, thank you. So I'm showing my entire screen, sharing, entire screen, and then let's go over straight to the PPT. Yeah, right.
Yes, is it visible? Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Right. So we all know it is an embedded system. Internet of Things is an embedded system with plenty of sensors, actuators, and networking, where many nodes share data over a wide area. The hardware can be discussed from two perspectives. Those who design chips which are related to sensors, chips which are related to amplifiers, signal conditioning circuits, controllers, actuators, or the people like me who are planning an architecture, who are designing systems, and who are building systems, who are selecting components and building a practical application. So we will discuss today hardware from the second perspective. I know this is a post-lunch session and some of you might feel a little sleepy. So just bear with me for about 10-15 minutes, then we will talk about the practical things which I have done, which probably you would find far more interesting. So we'll discuss it from the second perspective, and that is of integrating an IoT in an electric automobile. So we are building an electric automobile, and IoT is not a compulsory thing in that, but we decide to integrate it because these days everything which is there, which is moving or non-moving, is reporting about it or logging the data somewhere. So this is what I will talk more about it. Before we dive deeper into chips and circuits, let's review some basics about designing circuits or designing IoT. So first, this is a slide which is a universal slide because everybody sees this, challenges in hardware design. So we are integrating heterotype of sensors, interfaces, networking protocol, and make a single uniform homogeneous manner. If I'm going to choose 4 or 5 sensors from market, some sensors come with an I2C interface, some sensors come with an SPI interface, some sensor may come with an analog interface, and some sensors may offer either a CAN or even some of them give an analog output in the form of a PWM. Very recently, I got a sensor which was giving a 4 to 20 milliampere current output. So all these are heterogeneous sensors. The manufacturers are experts in their own domain, and we have to respect them, and we have to convert that into something which is acceptable to our microcontrollers or acceptable to our master controllers. So that is one of the challenges, and this difficulty in adapting to new environments. Now, in the vehicle which I am building, we have most of the automobiles have what they call as a hot compartment, engine compartment, and a not so hot compartment, which is the body where the driver is sitting. In case of a electric vehicle, something which you put inside a motor controller, something which you put inside a motor, something which you put inside a battery box. These are different kind of environment that what you would put inside a regular vehicle. Now, some of them have to be waterproof. Some of them have to be merely dust proof, and some of them would be able to withstand high vibration and high temperature. So the IoT circuits which we think of have to adapt for the new environment. Frequent changes in hardware and software requirement and facilities. Now this is something which I have seen happening in last 2 or 3 years. So something what we visualized 3 years back is much different today. So every 6 months, one or the other facility gets added up. Very recently, we added a 9 degrees of freedom chip, a sensor, which is the inertial motion unit or something, IMU, which has got 9 degrees of freedom, 3 degrees of say accelerometer, 3 degrees of magnetometer, and 3 degrees of gyroscope or angular velocity. Now, it's not a question of integrating only a sensor. How are you going to connect it? What is the data rate? And how you are going to use it. So that changes your hardware and software completely. Then comes the issues in packaging and integration of small size chips with low weight and lesser power. if somebody tells you that you mount 4 such chips in near the 4 wheels of your car, suppose somebody says, I want to see how the each wheel is bouncing, right? So you are going to put some kind of an accelerometer near the wheel. So you are going to mount those little chips or little bigger things very close to the suspension, not a single thing into the body. You are not interested in how the CG moves. You are interested in seeing how the each wheel moves. If that is the case, then issues come into packaging it, right? And lastly, one of the bigger challenges is how to design a circuit or how to design a system which is aware of its energy. What do I mean by energy? If you look at your modern laptops or phones, they are extremely aware of their energy. So they have different sleep modes. If you talk about the modern microcontrollers, they have a sleep mode where everything is slept. Then there is a mode in which the low power version is running. Then there is a next higher, so there is slightly more power consumption, and some interrupts are enabled, or A to D converters are running. So one by one, they just, or some D to A converters are operational. So they just go on having different levels of power consumption. So how do you become energy aware? Either you look for the voltage of your battery and you decide that this is a 3.7 volt battery. When it is fully charged, it is at 4.2 volts. When it is fully discharged, it comes to, let us say, 3.3 volts, right? No, 3.7, yeah, 3.3 volts to 3.4 volts. So that's the range. So the way the circuit would function at 4 volts would be different than the way the circuit would function at 3.1 volt or 3.3 volts. So it will automatically start shutting down some of its functions. So these are the challenges in hardware design which you have to do for designing any circuit, especially IoT circuits. Now let's focus on, if I'm going to design for IoT, what are the activities which I have to do? So these are the 5 activities. First and foremost is the selection of chipset. Selection of chipset means the selection of microcontrollers, selection of communication controllers, selection of some of the modems or network controllers. What kind of a Wi-Fi chips, Bluetooth chips, other radios, long-range radios you are going to use. Now, would you buy them from some vendor or would you buy them from the vendor who is making a microcontroller for you? Would you like to buy these 3 chips, Bluetooth chip and Wi-Fi chip and the microcontroller chip separately and integrate on PCB? Or would you like to buy a single block from a manufacturer like Espressif, who offers you ESP32 into a single module, right? So the selection of chipset becomes a very major major decision. And then you have to design your board depending upon where it is going to be deployed, how big it is, and so on. The next thing which we have to worry is how we are going to communicate with the cloud. Integration with the cloud. So integration with the cloud has got 2 aspects. How do we send the data? What is the medium of transport through which the data is going to leave my device and reach the server? So that's one part. And second part is, who is sitting in the server which is going, or who is going to receive my data? Is that a Google Drive? Is that a AWS website which is having a database server where I'm going to push my data directly into it? Or is that going to be some kind of a web server which will take the data from me and put it in the database server itself, right? So all those things have a reflection on my hardware. So and then the question, of course, whenever you are doing something with internet and web, is what kind of a encryption will you do? Is the encryption going to be done in hardware in real time, or it's going to be software, and we have plenty of time to do? So hardware gets reflected by it. How do we integrate with cloud? Then there are certification requirements, so we'll see them, and how to make the design modular. One of the issues with IoT is that IoT is supposed to be scalable. Now, what do you mean by scalable? Am I going to have 4 or 5 or 6 devices of homogeneous type which are going to talk to a cloud? Am I going to have 10? Am I going to have 100? Am I going to have 1,000 or 100,000? So for all these magnitudes, orders of magnitude, we have to have a design modularity. And this design modularity would be there in the hardware as well as it's going to be there in the software in the cloud. So these are the things which we'll now quickly see. As I said, we are reviewing some of the basics, and then we'll go on to the actual things which I used or I followed. So now why do we require the chips? We require chips to make node controllers. What is a node controller? Typically, if I have got a sensor which says I have a foot pedal as a throttle, so whenever I press the throttle pedal, just like you do in a car or an auto rickshaw, there is a change in angle. The angle has to be reflected into voltage. The voltage has to be conveyed to the microcontroller or the master controller. Now that information which is going to come from that sensor, is it going to directly come to the controller through A to D converter or through PWM, which you can transfer over say 10 feet of wire? Or if it is going to come through a CAN node. So if it is going to behave like a CAN node, you would require one processor which would properly shape the signal and another processor which is aware of how to send and receive the data on CAN. Or I have a steering sensor which sends it data on CAN. So when you say node controller, this node means the element, how it gets connected to a local network. So somebody who is participating in the local network, the network could be some of the local network we saw, it could be an Ethernet network, it could be a serial network, it could be a Wi-Fi or Bluetooth network also. So you have to select a chip which enables your sensor or this thing as a node controller. And then actually sensor and actuator controllers, network controllers. Somebody, if you might be having a network, then if you are having a local Wi-Fi, then you would need some kind of a Wi-Fi server or Wi-Fi access point. So network controller is required. And then the functional controller. The functional controller, you want to control motor, you want to control battery, you want to control a particular device. If you are having some agricultural equipment, you want to turn on and turn off proportionately the valve so that water or a chemical or a pesticide is released. So functional controller is something which performs a specific function. And then a lot of ICs which are related to signal conditioning and driver and all that. Now, why I'm adding the fifth item here? I found out that some of the things which we routinely want, some of the ICs, they're also supplied by the microcontroller manufacturer. Especially if you are using a manufacturer like NXP or Texas Instruments or ST Microsystems. So apart from making microcontroller, they make large number of power-related ICs and driver ICs and signal conditioning ICs. So it pays you well if you are also looking at the other kind of ICs available or chips available from the same manufacturer whose node controller, network controller, and the master controllers you are going to use. We come to board design. This is very standard. So we have very choices you can make about the size and types of board. Somebody uses a 2-layer board or a 4-layer board, and depending upon size and how you want to make it compact, then you need what kind of a connectors are you going to use. So there are wire to board connector and board to board connectors or wire to wire connectors. So if you are going to put two boards in close proximity, then you can have board to board connector. Now these connectors are important because especially in an automobile kind of a situation, there are going to be large number of vibrations. Now, if you take a typical device which is kept in an almirah, kept on your table, which is mounted in a huge rack in a power station or something, it's not designed for vibration. It is designed for all other things, but it is not designed for vibration. So the connectors have to be designed for vibration. Then in case of an automobile, you are going to wash the automobile. So it has to be splash proof, that water should not get ingested into the connectors or pins or something, even when it is live, right? And then you are going to mount those boards into some kind of an enclosure, and the enclosures are going to be mounted in the vehicle. So that's going to dictate the board design. Enclosure, what kind of metal enclosures, plastic enclosures, rubber enclosures, enclosures which flex their shape when something happens. So a PCB which will go in a two-wheeler where the shape is where the shape may be slightly curved because there is a shortage of space available. So you have to mount a PCB under the seat in an electric two-wheeler. So enclosures sometimes dictate how the boards would look like. Then comes the issue of EMI, EMC, and shielding. If your board is generating a lot of radiation, typical microcontrollers have 8 megahertz crystal and 24 megahertz crystal and 16 megahertz crystal. And if you are oscillating for some reason, and if you are having a PWM signal, which is having a 10 kilohertz fundamental frequency, right? 10 kilohertz is the switching speed. Then this is going to generate, especially the PWM. Say in case of my vehicle, it's a 72 volt battery, which is controlling up to 50 amperes. So this 72 volts is fed from battery to the motor through a PWM. So naturally, it's going to make a huge radiation. And that radiation is detected by sensitive instruments, and then you are not supposed to create so much of thing. Otherwise, the driver who is sitting in the car, his devices will stop working, his phone will stop working. So number one, A, your device should not generate noise which will trouble others. And B, your devices should not get troubled if somebody else is producing noise. Right? For example, your vehicle is standing next to a car in a traffic light, and the car is running, and the car is having a petrol engine with a 4 spark plugs, a 4-cylinder engine. Each spark plug would generate tremendous amount of radiation. You can hear that radiation, you can hear that sound, that kind of sound in a radio. If you take a transistor radio near your scooter or a car, you can hear that sound of the radiation. So the radiation created by other vehicles should not interfere with your microcontrollers or sensors. So EMI, EMC, you have to be careful about them, and so you shield them. And sometimes you have to do a board design which is compliant with EMI, EMC. The last thing is routing of power supply and signals and RF circuits. The fifth happens because of the fourth, right? And of course, power supply is important because many times what we found out that the voltages, the delays, if you are having an 8-bit bus going from one end of the PCB to other one, and 7 lines are going straight and the 8th line you are routed, then the 8th line would include a little bit of propagation delay, which the other lines are not there. And that may become, shall I say, detectable or detrimental when you are running at 50 megahertz or 100 megahertz and that kind of thing. So routing of tracks for power supply, for signals, and for radio frequency. So these are the things we have to do for board. Yeah, I forgot to mention that anytime you feel you want to tell me something or ask anything, please raise a hand. So I hope I can see a hand is being raised or something, or send me a message, right? Because if I make the screen full, I may not be able to see your indication. Yeah. I'm trying to scale it down whether I can have full. No. Whenever I make a full screen, I select the slide fully, I get the full. Okay, let's proceed. The next one comes with the integration with cloud. So this is choices about access to internet and network link. So first we have to make this choice. So for me, the choices was what do I use? So do I use a Wi-Fi dongle? A Wi-Fi dongle given to me by say Airtel, or Wi-Fi dongle given to me by Jio, in which I put their SIM, and then that becomes a server, and my device has a Wi-Fi interface, and then my device sends the data to the little USB dongle, and that dongle would act as a router and send it to cloud. So that is one way to do it. The other is I use a modem. So there is a company called Simcom which manufactures, and there is another one called U-Blocks. So I know of these two companies. If you know any other company which makes excellent modems, please forward the names to me, because we are yet finalizing what modem we are going to use. So the Simcom 800 series is more about 2G modems. And the 7600 EI is a 4G LTE modem, plus there is a GPS included in that. Now, both these modems are available in the form of modules and in the form of boards, evaluation boards. So you can take a board and connect it to your microcontroller through a UART, or you can connect it through a USB. So both facilities are available. So if you work through Wi-Fi, the interface becomes altogether different, the libraries become altogether different, and you are much more comfortable. Why? Because there is a Wi-Fi stack or Ethernet stack already available. But if you are working through simple modems, the modems offer you 80 command set. So there is a 80 command for of the making receiver off the hook, dialing a number, receiving a code or something. So for every little operation, for every task, we have to have 7, 8, or 9 different 80 commands. So a small program you have to write for performing a simple task. Now, it's not as simple as that. What happens is, suppose you have to execute 7 commands to perform a task. And after fifth command, the modem hangs up or takes little more time or gives somewhat different response. So you have to write a program which is a proper state machine, which remembers that out of 7 states, you are in a 5th state, and you should be willing to go back to 4th state, do something else, and then come back to 5th state, right? Now that is a code which is not easily available in the libraries, and that's a code which we have to write ourselves. So working with this kind of a modems, though it is elegant and simple in terms of hardware, but from the firmware point of view, library point of view, it becomes a different challenge, right? And also some of the libraries which we get are blocking type. So if you are sending data to cloud, you cannot do anything else. So this is the first choice, how to reach the internet. And the second is how to make a local network. So you can make a local network using UART, using a USB. Using a USB hub, you can have 2 or 3 devices which are talking to your own processor. You can use Ethernet, because now Ethernet was very popular. I mean, we all have Ethernet in our laboratories. Ethernet is very popular in industry, but now it is becoming more popular in automobiles once again, because of A, the speeds, and B, the robustness. CAN and LIN are of course very common. They are there for last 15-20 years, and as long as the automobiles are there, they will continue to use CAN. LIN is more for USB kind of thing and for low speed data transfer. And Wi-Fi and LoRa and Bluetooth. So you can make a local network of devices inside your own system using these links, and then use one router to take the data to the internet, right? Why am I suggesting this configuration? I am suggesting because many people are designing sensor nodes which directly send data to internet, right? So that's also okay. If I am mounting something on an electric pole outside my house, let us say MPB gives me a contract to design a standalone system which monitors the voltage, which may monitor the power factor or current or something. It will also monitor the purity of the air. It will also monitor, may handle a camera or something, or not MPV, but say a smart city corporation of our city gives a contract. So now I'm going to put a box on the top of the lamp post in front of my house, or on a street, or on a highway. Now that one is going to work alone. That is not going to form a network with like-minded thing, because they are far away from each other. So in that case, you might like to put a modem right into that, and they use that modem to connect to internet. So it's up to us to decide whether I'm going to share the access to internet through for a single sensor, a collection of 3-4 sensors, or for a group of 8-10 different kind of sensors, right? So best we put it this way, that in a geographical location, in an area of something like say 10 feet by 10 feet or 20 feet by 100 feet by 100 feet, I will have to put a single Wi-Fi router, unless I have access like optical fiber cable or something, which then of course the issues are different. So local networks would always be needed. The second point is, what kind of a network protocol are we going to use? I know I'm talking more about hardware here, But this is a funny thing. Depending upon what kind of a network you are going to use, that decides what kind of a chipset we are going to use. So what? Not only chipset, what kind of a network controller or what kind of a shall we say telecommunication controller, gateway controller, access controller. What processor we are going to use will also get dictated by these protocols. So, is your server on the cloud is a web server? Are you going to use an HTTP or HTTPS secure protocol, or are you going to use an MQTT broker? If you are going to have a MQTT protocol, then where is your broker situated? Is it situated in a device close to you with which you can talk either through a wire line or Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, or the broker is situated on cloud? And third is customized clients that directly push data into database or save files on the cloud. As I said, the first case is where we put on an Amazon web server. We directly push the data into our disk. And second one is that I save text files on Google Drive. So that is the second case. So these are the two cases when we are integrating with the clouds. And these choices decide the communication processor and OS and library. So if I have to do all those things using my 80 commands and I have to write everything myself, it becomes extremely painful. But if I have to do something with a Linux, and the Linux has got so many routines built into it, then it becomes easy for me. So the OS dictates. So if I have chosen a Linux, then I have to now find out which are those processors which support Linux. So only those processors I will be able, or those chipsets I will have to buy. So integration with cloud affects the selection of OS, that affects the selection of the chip. And the next, as I said, how many such devices, how many such nodes, how many such entities are going to push their data into cloud. So that modularity should be there. So we should be able to add or delete blocks of hardware, then firmware upgrade. And then in case of a failure, you want to transfer functionality from one block to another. So what we call as a graceful degradation. Your system has got 5 blocks, which is performing a certain function. Suddenly one of the block fails for some reason or another. So can one block from the remaining 4 take over that function and starts working, right? So such kind of a design modularity, or whether the 6th module which was lying dormant on the network, can it be brought up quickly, okay, to take care of the module which has failed. So the designs have to be modular so that you can add it manually or they can come up all their own. So we like a what you call crossbar function in a telephone, crossbar unit in a telephone exchange. We have to perform m functions from n blocks. So n hardware blocks or units of hardware are going to be there which are going to perform m functions. And then we have to decide that yes, this block can do function 1, 2, 3. This block can do function 5, 7, and 8. This block can do 1, 7, and 8. And there is a certain amount of duplication or redundancy. Then there is the security related issues. Unfortunately, whenever you are living in connected world, there will always be somebody who will put a premium on hacking your system and see whether he can get some money out of you. So we have to have robust and reliable communication in face of threats. So again, 2 types of threats. That's what we call denial of service threat. That he's sending so much of information, so much of traffic that your normal operation becomes untenable. And second is somebody who penetrates your network, security implementation in terms of, so penetrates your network and misleads you or damages you or steals something or misdirects the equipment, right? So all these issues, so we have to implement security so that the threats are mitigated. And then once you implement the security, then there will be algorithms. Those algorithms would decide the computing power. For example, if I'm using a Cortex M0 microcontroller, M0 Plus, or using a Cortex M3 microcontroller, it may not have the hardware encryption engine which is needed. And that might be available only in Cortex M4, suppose. So I will be forced to use a M4 if I have got a security implementation. And then the question arises that if you want to do everything in terms of software, then how does it affect your transaction time? How does it affect the space, or how does it affect the so best thing is blocking physical access to the data is the best security in the world. So one of the early decisions we took in our case is that we will not use anything wireless in our system. Okay, so all our local networks would be wired and connected. We will have only one wireless gateway, and that is to reach the internet. And we will put all our resources in protecting that. Means I don't want my motor controller to talk to my master controller, or my battery controller talk to my master controller through Bluetooth or through Wi-Fi. And then I don't want somebody hacker to come and stand beside my vehicle, whip out his mobile phone or whip out his laptop and start logging into my device and finding out what is happening, right? Or violate the privacy of the customer. So and find out कि इसने पिछली बार सर्विसिंग कहाँ से करवाया था, और उस सर्विसिंग में क्या क्या फेल हुआ था, what are the things which have gone bad, or even if suppose the data which we are collecting is in terms of geographical location and the time कि आप 5:35 पे 56 दुकान पे क्या कर रहे थे. So we don't want the information which is collected inside the vehicle in terms of its location and time and all those to be hacked by somebody, right? So security implementation may relate to hardware again. Last is certification requirement. Whenever you are making a vehicle, whenever you are making something which is for public, there are always going to be government agencies, and the government agencies would require some kind of would require the vehicle to be certified for certain requirements. So the domain, so automobiles have a certain certifications, two-wheelers or three-wheelers, they have different type of certification. If you are making a high voltage equipment, that will have a different one. If you are making for defense, that will have different. If you are making a wearable device, if you are making a device which measures the blood pressure and the what do you call SpO2, oxygen saturation in your body, then everything would have a different certification requirement. You can't just make a product and launch it. So you have to select hardware which you have to select a hardware which meets all those requirements, right? And those factors will dictate the selection of components and standards vis-a-vis a standard. So whether then we say, do I buy a standard product from the market, or do I make a customized, or do I buy a standard product or customized product? Or similarly, there is another thing which I came up is that, do I use a standard custom? So I have to connect two devices. Do I use it from using a protocol which is known to everybody, like a UART? Suppose I want to make a serial protocol. So do I make a serial communication between two devices using UART, which everybody knows? Or do I use it using SPI, which is a synchronous serial communication, but then I tinker with the devices, its program, and I say, instead of 8 bits, I'll send 10 bits, or instead of 8 bits, I'll send 24 bits. Or I may change the transmit clock is different than the receive clock and things like that. Okay, so I can make my own customized hardware protocols so that I meet certain certification requirements. So this was covering the basics. Yeah. So now we focus on actual implementation where some of those issues were handled. What is the application? The application is a passenger electric vehicle. First of all, there are vehicles. So either there's a passenger vehicle or there's a cargo vehicle. So these two vehicles are somewhat different in their approach. A passenger vehicle is more for a passenger's comfort and safety. In case of a cargo vehicle, the driver's safety is important, but the driver's comfort is not that important. What is more important is ability to carry the cargo in an economical manner. And a cargo vehicle is supposed to be more rugged and robust, and is supposed to put in lot more mileage. So आप जब अपनी स्कूटर या कार से ऑफिस जाते हैं, कॉलेज जाते हैं, तो सारे समय आपका व्हीकल खड़ा रहता है, और आप सुबह जाते हैं, शाम को वापस आते हैं. लेकिन उतने ही देर में 8 घंटे में एक अगर कार्गो व्हीकल होगा तो वो इंदौर में 100-150 किलोमीटर घूम लेगा. right? So the application is altogether, application of a passenger vehicle and a cargo vehicle is altogether different. So this is going to be a four-wheeler, and we want that four-wheeler to be connected to cloud at all times. So when I say connected to cloud, what do I mean? So first and foremost, I want to know where it is parked, whether we need to secure it, whether there is a fear that somebody might steal it or something. So do I have to put an extra security to it? Then if it is, what is the status of the battery? How long can it run? So location is one important thing. Its normal health is an important. If it is in the motion, then how is it doing? What is the temperature of its different parts? How much energy it is wasting? How efficiently it is working? If you are constantly starting and stopping, you are wasting a lot of your energy. Most of our energy gets wasted when we wait or we slow down for traffic signals and we accelerate again. And whether some of this energy is regenerated back and fed back into the battery. So we would like to know all those things. We would like to have every day when the user would take this vehicle from his home to his office and back, we would like to make a chart from him that today your trip was such and such. I mean, you got so much of mileage out of it, or you got so much of efficiency out of it. अब हम जिसको सादी भाषा में कहते हैं ना कितना माइलेज मिला, कि आप 1 लीटर के पीछे आज कितने किलोमीटर गए, इसी तरह से वी वुड लाइक टू से कि आज आप 1 किलोवाट आवर यूनिट के पीछे, इलेक्ट्रिकल यूनिट के पीछे आप कितने किलोमीटर चले. So that connection is more important, that you have to not only collect the data, but you have to put that data on cloud all the time, so we know what's happening. Second is a electronic motor speed control for each wheel. So this is a different kind of a vehicle where the control is electronic. Normally अगर आप किसी फोर व्हीलर को देखेंगे तो there is a single plant, power plant. The power plant could be in petrol engine, it could be a diesel engine. और आजकल जो फोर व्हीलर कारें मिल रही हैं इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल में एक सिंगल मोटर होती है. 15 किलोवाट की मोटर है, 20 किलोवाट की मोटर है, 50 की मोटर है. प्रोबेबली हम जब टेस्ला की बात करते हैं तो उसमें हंड्रेड्स ऑफ किलोवाट की मोटर्स होती हैं. सो दैट ह्यूज मोटर ड्राइव्स ए प्रोपेलर शाफ्ट. द प्रोपेलर शाफ्ट ड्राइव्स ए मैकेनिकल डिफरेंशियल, और उस मैकेनिकल डिफरेंशियल में से 2 शाफ्ट निकलते हैं जो एक लेफ्ट व्हील को जाता है और एक राइट व्हील को जाता है, राइट. सो वी हैव डिस्पेंस्ड विद दैट and we have put a separate motor for the left wheel and a separate motor for right wheel. Tomorrow we can also put separate motors for front wheels also. So अभी हम 2 wheel control बना रहे हैं, आगे जाके हम 4 wheel control भी बना सकते हैं. So there is a electronic motor speed control for each wheel. और अगर आप ये व्हीकल वाले लोगों से बात करें तो उसको वो लोग वेक्टर कंट्रोल कहते हैं. मतलब फॉर देम दीज मोटर्स आर सोर्सेस ऑफ फोर्स, जिसका एक अपना वेक्टर है. तो ये हो सकता है कि आपका बायां व्हील आपको इस वेक्टर में, इस डायरेक्शन में ले जाने की कोशिश कर रहा है और दायां व्हील इस दिशा में जाने की कोशिश कर रहा है. और जैसे वेक्टर के साथ होता है कि उसकी डायरेक्शन और मैग्नीट्यूड थोड़ी थोड़ी अलग अलग हो सकती है, राइट. कम से कम सामने वाले की तो होती है बिकॉज उसमें मैकेनिकल स्टीयरिंग होता है, पीछे के व्हील्स फिक्स्ड रहते हैं. सो दे कॉल इट वेक्टर कंट्रोल. नाउ आई एम नॉट वेरी कंफर्टेबल विद दैट टर्मिनोलॉजी, बट सो बी इट. So electronic motor speed control, it's drive by wire. So drive by wire का मतलब है कि आप पूरी कार के अंदर बैठ के जॉयस्टिक से चला सकते हैं, ठीक है. और कोई ज़रूरी नहीं है कि मतलब, लेकिन अब गवर्नमेंट चाहती है तो मतलब उसको स्टीयरिंग भी देना पड़ेगा. सो दिस पॉइंट विल टेक लेटर. And this is meant for urban commute and small footprint. So this is a special kind of vehicle which is going to be a pretty small vehicle. It's a 4-wheeler, but it is meant for cities travel. So distance कम रहेगा, 60-70 kilometers, and small area. So parking is becoming easy. So this is a passenger electric vehicle. Now अब हम लोग इलेक्ट्रिकल बात करें, कंट्रोलर्स की बात करें, तो आप दिस व्हीकल नीड्स टू प्रोवाइड, हम लोगों को वी हैव टू प्रोवाइड फॉलोइंग थिंग्स. बैटरी मैनेजमेंट. सो वी हैव टू सी कि बैटरी चार्ज हो रही है कि नहीं. अगर बैटरी के अंदर 24 सेल्स हैं तो ईच सेल शुड बी इंडिपेंडेंटली चार्ज्ड. नथिंग शुड गेट ओवरचार्ज और अंडर चार्ज. And when you are discharging it, if any of the one cell falls below a certain level, the battery discharging should be stopped. So जिसको हम कहते हैं, अगर मान लीजिए 3.7 वोल्ट की बैटरी है, आपने सभी सेल 3.7 पे हैं, you start discharging, the moment when any cell reaches 3.4 volt, we should stop discharging. So there should be a microcontroller which should monitor this. Similarly, when you are charging, each cell should supposed to go to 4.0 volt or 4.1 volt or say maximum 4.2 volts. So you can set a thing that if anybody reaches a 4.1 volt, we want to stop the charging. So the battery management is a very important part. Then of course there is a overcurrent protection, short circuit protection, high temperature protection, and then calculating how much charge is there left in the battery. Right? So all those functions are done by a microcontroller, which is called a battery management system. So the vehicle must have a processor there, sorry, for battery management. The second is the motor control. So as I mentioned, the motor control is everything. Is गाड़ी का जो engine है वो motor है. So the motor has to be controlled, and there is a very sophisticated algorithms which are used for motor control. Now this motor controller is a master of the motor, and you can control it. You can make a request to the motor controller that please run your motor for such and such speed, and if somebody demands so much of torque, then please provide it, right? So you make a request. The motor controller is the boss of the motor itself. So you can call it distributed control. So the हमारा जो vehicle controller है, it is kind of an overall manager, but motor controller is a special function. Secondly, the motor controller works in real time. So everything inside is working at a very high speed. The PWM is switching at 10,000 times per second or 10,000 hertz के ऊपर or 20,000 hertz के ऊपर. So internal जो algorithms हैं for, then in the PWM they are trying to generate and create a sine wave. So another more complication coming in that. Next comes the climate control. So you are going to have an AC. So a climate control is a glamorous name for AC. So you would have a controller which would decide ki whether you need to drive the compressor also, and there are going to be two fans. So वो दोनों फैन चलाने हैं या खाली और एक कंप्रेसर भी चलाना है या एक फैन और एक कंप्रेसर चलाना है. And the next is user interface. So when you are driving, there is going to be an instrument cluster. So instrument cluster will show कि गाड़ी की स्पीड कितनी है, इंजन का आरपीएम कितना है या मोटर की स्पीड कितनी है, आरपीएम कितना है. उसके बाद आपकी बैटरी में कितना चार्ज है. जैसे फिलहाल हम लोग ये जानते हैं कि हमारे टंकी में कितना पेट्रोल है, इसी तरह से. एंड देन वी रिक्वायर सम काइंड ऑफ ए वॉइस अलर्ट कि आपका दरवाज़ा खुला है, कृपया दरवाज़ा बंद कर लें, या आपका सीट बेल्ट आपने नहीं लगाया है वो कर लें, या आपकी बैटरी जो है कम होती जा रही है तो अब आपको कहीं ना कहीं रुक के चार्ज करवा लेना चाहिए, राइट. सो देयर आर सम, यू कैन प्रोवाइड ए वॉइस अलर्ट. सो ये यूज़र इंटरफेस देनी पड़ेंगी. एंड देन देयर इज ए वॉइस रिकॉग्निशन. तो जिस तरह से उसमें से ऑडियो आउटपुट निकल रहा है, इसी तरह से वो आपका ऑडियो इनपुट भी लेगा. So nowadays everybody knows that you can have that Alexa kind of thing inbuilt using your Raspberry Pi. आपको खाली एक माइक्रोफोन और एक एम्पलीफायर अगर आप रास्पबेरी पाई को कनेक्ट कर दें, then you can connect, put the software library into that, and that can take a certain number of voice commands. So you can say Alexa open the doors, or you can say Alexa start the radio, or you can say Alexa make a phone call. So voice recognition commands can also be there. So these are the user interface जिसके लिए हमको command मतलब processor की जरूरत पड़ती है. So then is the locomotion sensors and actuators. So since if the vehicle is in motion, you have to find out what is its speed. So आपने some kind of a sensor is required on the tires to find out कि left जो wheel है उसका RPM क्या है, जो right wheel है उसका RPM क्या है. So उसके लिए आपको सेंसर्स की जरूरत पड़ सकती है. प्लस जैसा मैंने कहा एक्सेलरोमीटर्स, शॉक मीटर्स. कल को कोई अगर जोर से इम्पैक्ट हुआ, सो यू वुड लाइक टू लोकेट इट एंड इन्फॉर्म द somebody that the vehicle has met with an accident or something. So either your accelerometer can detect that, or there's a different kind of a impact detection, and some of the actuators, locomotion से related, and vehicle stability and safety. So यू आर रनिंग एट, हमारे व्हीकल में तो ये इतना इशू नहीं है, बट जहाँ पे हाई स्पीड में आप कॉर्नरिंग कर रहे हैं, यू आर ड्राइविंग द व्हीकल, और आपने ब्रेक लगाया और आपके ब्रेक की वजह से पहिए जाम हो गए, और पहिए जाम हो गए तो आपकी गाड़ी लैटरली स्लाइड कर रही है, सीधी नहीं जा रही है, वो साइड में खसक रही है. सो समबडी इनसाइड द व्हीकल शुड रिमेंबर कि जाना कहाँ है और जा कहाँ रही है. सो इन दैट केस अभी जो हमारे यहाँ होता है उसको एंटी लॉक ब्रेकिंग कहते हैं सिंपल फॉर्म में, कि जो ब्रेक का पेडल मैंने दबा के रखा है दैट इज नॉट ट्रांसलेटेड टू द ब्रेक, बट उसके बीच में थोड़ा ऑन ऑफ डाल देते हैं, थोड़ा सा ब्रेक लगाया, थोड़ा सा रिलीज किया, उसकी वजह से जाम नहीं होते ब्रेक और ब्रेक लगते रहते हैं और स्किडिंग जो है साइडवेज स्किडिंग वो बच जाता है. और दूसरा है सेफ्टी. So safety means if you are going to take a turn at a high speed, your vehicle is going to tilt, and if it tilts too much, it will fall, it will topple. तो ये आपको गिरने से बचाने के लिए हमको उसमें एक सेफ्टी डालनी पड़ेगी. सेफ्टी क्या हो सकती है? अगर व्हीकल टिल्ट हो रहा है तो हम व्हीकल की स्पीड कम कर दें तो वापस, क्योंकि ये बेसिकली व्हीकल क्यों टिल्ट होता है, ये सेंट्रीफ्यूगल फोर्स की वजह से टिल्ट होता है. एंड व्हाट कॉजेज द सेंट्रीफ्यूगल फोर्स? It is the square of the velocity. If I can reduce my speed by 10%, तो मेरी जो probability है वो 90% से गिर के 81% हो जाती है. So मेरी safety improve हो जाती है. So आपने throttle दे के रखा है कि नहीं मैं तो full speed पे पूरा turn मारूंगा, चाहे मेरे साथ जो भी हो जाए. I am bent on committing a harakiri, but the vehicle should say sorry. If you are having so much of steering angle, I will not allow the motor to be run at such a high speed. I'll draw it at a slower speed, and once you make the steering straight, again you can run at high speed. तो इसके लिए हमको एक कंट्रोलर चाहिए या इसके लिए हमको एक प्रोसेसर चाहिए. Then data collection and transportation to cloud. So data is going to be generated into different parts of the vehicle. बैटरी के अंदर खुद का डेटा जनरेट हो रहा है, मोटर कंट्रोलर के अंदर खुद का हो रहा है, जो ये स्टेबिलिटी वाला है इसका खुद का है, जो यूजर इंटरफेस वाला है उसका खुद का है, और जो सेफ्टी वाला है उसका खुद का है, और जो जीपीएस और लोकेशन वाला उसका खुद का है. सो देयर आर 100, 150, 200 पैरामीटर्स व्हिच आर बीइंग कलेक्टेड. So these are collected at different nodes inside the vehicle. Now they have to be brought together, and then they have to be suitably formatted and sent to the server. तो वो किसी की जिम्मे होना चाहिए ये काम, because you don't want each and every node to send data to the server, right? Don't have to, because उसका encryption भी करना पड़ेगा. तो encryption करने के लिए पहले उसके आपको collect करना पड़ेगा, right? And then overall vehicle ownership and management. So you require a master controller or a vehicle controller which makes sure that all parts in the vehicle are working all right. So सारे मैनेजरों के ऊपर एक जनरल मैनेजर चाहिए which provides the overall vehicle ownership and management. So let me just check whether is there any raised hand or something. I guess not. So do we have any question? If you have any question, I can take it now, and otherwise we can
I have a general question. It's not related to that IoT, but it's related to this electrical vehicles.
Sure.
Yeah. So the question is that we are means enforceable, we are encouraging the electric vehicles in a system so that the carbon footprint or the pollution get reduced.
Right.
But my major concern is that the people's mainly means focused on that price or the cost of the petrol or diesel. So is it related to that the charging cost for the electrical vehicle is very less compared to the cost of the petrol and diesel?
So okay, there are two aspects of your question. One is about the cost of charging or what we call kitna mileage deti hai, and this first one is about the pollution, right? So yes. Of course, there are different kinds of pollution. Some people are even thinking ki there is a carbon dioxide footprint. So if you are going to manufacture battery cells and if you are going to manufacture motors, so जिस factory में ये होगा वो तो carbon dioxide produce करेगी. So I'm not disputing that. So somebody has to do that हिसाब also. और somebody says कि the battery में charging जो आप डालेंगे वो MPV से लाएंगे और MPV लाती है thermal power plant से. तो कुल मिला के आपने इंदौर शहर का पोल्यूशन जो है वो उठा करके सारणी में या कोरबा में या और कहीं ट्रांसफर कर दिया. So these are, I accept all those things are true. What it is changing is the nitrous oxide. See, like petrol vehicles and diesel vehicles are very bad because they produce nitrous oxides into our atmosphere. So वो nitrous oxide कम से कम अब नहीं बन रहे हैं. ये एक major वो है. तो हमको जो खांसी वगैरह से रिलेटेड या लंग्स से रिलेटेड प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, धुएं से रिलेटेड, वो कम हो जाते हैं.
अच्छा.
सो दैट इज, उसमें डेफिनेटली सेविंग है. सो दिस इज नंबर 1. नंबर 2, मींस नाउ आई एम आस्किंग, आंसरिंग ए क्वेश्चन विच यू हैवंट आस्क्ड कि इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल की जरूरत क्या है. सो इट्स लाइक दिस कि जब मैं एक मोटर कार खरीदता हूँ, छोटी सी हैचबैक कार खरीदता हूँ, इंडिका खरीदता हूँ, तो मैं 70 हॉर्स पावर की गाड़ी खरीदता हूँ.
अच्छा.
आप लोग देखेंगे तो नैनो वगैरह जो है ये 35 हॉर्स पावर की है. मैं टाटा मोटर्स की जो सब्सिडियरी है टाटा टेक्नोलॉजी में 5 साल काम करता था, और जब उन्होंने हमसे कहा कि 2007 या 8 में उन्होंने कहा कि आप हमको एक इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल का प्रपोजल बना के दो, तो मैंने बनाया, क्योंकि हम लोगों ने छोटे छोटे मॉडल्स बनाए थे और उससे चलाते थे. तो मैंने उनसे पूछा कितना हॉर्स पावर चाहिए, कितने किलोवाट चाहिए, तो उन्होंने कहा कि 10, 15, 16 किलोवाट इज गुड इनफ. आई सेड 16 किलोवाट 16 किलोवाट तो करीब 20 हॉर्स पावर होता है. बोले हाँ. तो मुझे याद है कि 1 किलोवाट को आप 0.746 से डिवाइड करो तो हॉर्स पावर बनता है. तो वो फिजिक्स का पुराना फॉर्मूला है. सो दे सेड कि मैंने कहा अच्छा अगर ऐसा है तो फिर आप ये इंडिका में 70 हॉर्स पावर का इंजन क्यों लगाते हैं. अगर 20 हॉर्स पावर से मेरी इलेक्ट्रिक, मतलब आपकी इलेक्ट्रिक गाड़ी बनने वाली है, तो पेट्रोल इंजन में 70 हॉर्स पावर का इंजन क्यों लगाते हैं. तो उनका कहना था बात यह है कि वो लोग है ना जल्दी से पिकअप करना चाहते हैं.
अच्छा.
तो जब इसका मतलब है कि जब आप स्टार्ट करते हैं तब आप 70 हॉर्स पावर में से 40-50 हॉर्स पावर यूज करते हैं. जैसे ही गाड़ी पिकअप कर लेती है स्पीड, आप 30 हॉर्स पावर पे आ जाते हैं. तो इसका मतलब है कि मैं मेरी कार में 50 हॉर्स पावर अननेसेसरी तोक रहा हूँ. मतलब 20 हॉर्स पावर नहीं मुझे चाहिए मेरी कार में, मैं 50 हॉर्स पावर तोक रहा हूँ. और उस 50 हॉर्स पावर की कीमत कहाँ देता हूँ. पहली बार तो ये कि कंपनी मुझे एक बड़ा सा इंजन देती है तो उसके पैसे लेती है. उसके बाद एक 70 हॉर्स पावर के इंजन की जो वो क्या कहते हैं माइलेज है वो पुअर रहेगा, जबकि मैं उसे 10 हॉर्स पावर, मतलब किसी भी डिवाइस को या इक्विपमेंट को आप जब 30% एफिशिएंसी पे यूज करते हैं, कैपेसिटी पे, तो उसकी एफिशिएंसी कम रहती है. तो आपका वो पेट्रोल इंजन हमेशा आपको कम काम देगा. अगर आप वाकई में उस कार को हाईवे के ऊपर चलाएं फुल स्पीड पे, फुल लोड पे, तो आपको बहुत बढ़िया एफिशिएंसी मिलेगी, राइट. जबकि हम उसको अपने शहर में चलाते हैं, हम उसको फुल लोड पे चलाते हैं. तो हमने पेट्रोल इंजन की गाड़ी जो है वो किसी गलत तरह का इंजन, गलत कैपेसिटी का इंजन लगा के रखा है. अब तीसरी बात करते हैं कि बेसिकली पेट्रोल और डीजल चलते कैसे हैं. तो वो उस सिलेंडर के अंदर विस्फोट करते हैं. विस्फोट समझते हैं आप. उसके अंदर स्पार्क होता है और जोर से धमाका होता है, और उस धमाके से जो एनर्जी होती है उस एनर्जी को हम गियर बॉक्स के थ्रू ट्रांसफर करके पहियों में ले जाके, तो अब आपकी गाड़ी का इनर्शिया इतना जबरदस्त है कि वो जो एक मिनट में 100 धमाके होते हैं, या जिसको हम आरपीएम बोलते हैं या स्ट्रोक्स बोलते हैं, राइट, 100 स्ट्रोक्स पर मिनट या 500 स्ट्रोक्स पर मिनट, वो सारे धमाके स्मूथ आउट हो जाते हैं. तो आपको पता भी नहीं पड़ता कि अंदर धमाके हो रहे हैं. उन धमाकों से, सो दैट इज ए होपलेस वे ऑफ कन्वर्टिंग एनर्जी इनटू लोकोमोशन. और इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल क्यों अच्छे हैं, क्योंकि वो बेचारे गोल गोल घूमते हैं. मतलब धमाकों के दो प्रॉब्लम है. आपकी गाड़ी में जो धमाका होता है वो लीनियर मोशन में होता है. हमारे जो सिलेंडर और पिस्टन होते हैं वो लीनियर होते हैं, और हमको जो पहिया चलाना है वो गोल घुमाना है. तो हम लीनियर को क्रैंक लगा के गोल घुमाते हैं. तो वो हर तरह से खटारा चीज है. लेकिन वो 1910 से, जब से ये पेट्रोल व्हीकल पॉपुलर हुए हैं, ये चीज चली आ रही है, तो वो चली आ रही है. सो यू हैव गॉट ए बैड व्हीकल whose capacity is very large because of your चला से कस्टमर नीड्स कि मुझे जल्दी से एक्सेलरेट करना है, मेरे पास टाइम नहीं है, मुझे तो 4 सेकंड में फुल स्पीड पकड़नी है. सो दैट इज द फर्स्ट थिंग. सेकंड, आप नाइट्रस ऑक्साइड दे रहे हैं बिकॉज आप विस्फोट कर रहे हैं. और नंबर 3 जो है, ये आपने जिस तरह की एनर्जी बनाई है वो एनर्जी धक्के मारने के लिए अच्छी है, कंप्रेसर को चलाने के लिए अच्छी हो सकती है, हवा को कंप्रेस, वो सड़क पे व्हीकल चलाने के लिए अच्छी नहीं है. तो these are the 3 or 4 reasons why we use electric vehicle, right? अब आपकी वो आखिरी बात जो आपने पूछी थी वो बता दूं कि मुझे ठीक से नहीं मालूम, बट देयर इज अ सब्सटेंशियल सेविंग इन इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल. फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर मैं मेरी वैगन आर लेके जाता हूं तो मुझे 10 रुपए प्रति किलोमीटर लगता है. एक आदमी अगर मैं कार में बैठता हूँ, कैसे पता पड़ा कि भाई 1 लीटर में 10 किलोमीटर चलती है, और 1 लीटर अगर मान लीजिए 100 रुपए का पेट्रोल आ रहा है तो 10 रुपए करीब पड़ते हैं. तो अब आजकल के ज़माने में अगर आप उसमें ऑयल और बाकी सब खर्चे भी देखें तो शायद 12-13 रुपए प्रति किलोमीटर लगता है। लेकिन यही के यही जब हम किलोवाट आवर के हिसाब से लेते हैं कि अगर आपको एमपीवी की बिजली 12 रुपए प्रति किलोवाट मिल रही है तो आपको ये 70 पैसे से 1 रुपया प्रति किलोमीटर पड़ता है। और अगर आप ये जो छोटे छोटे स्कूटर वगैरह यूज करेंगे तो वो भी आपको बहुत सस्ते पड़ते हैं, वो और सस्ते पड़ते हैं। सो टू आंसर योर क्वेश्चन, electric vehicles are substantially cheaper while operating, right? But their initial cost is very high. That is number one. Number two, they use a battery whose life is limited. जो हमारे इंदौर में ऑटो रिक्शा चलते थे या अभी भी बहुत सारे ऑटो रिक्शा चलते हैं, उन सब में लेड एसिड बैटरियां हैं जिसका एसिड निकाला जा सकता है, बदला जा सकता है, रिपेयर होती हैं और उनकी लाइफ 6 महीने से साल भर है। तो अगर वो जो ऑटो रिक्शा वाला कस के रगड़ता है और खूब धंधा करता है तो वो हर 6 महीने या साल, कम से कम साल भर में तो उसको पूरी बैटरियां बदलनी पड़ती हैं। और अगर उन बैटरियों की पूरी कॉस्ट मान लीजिए 25,000 रुपये आती है या 30,000 रुपये आती है तो दैट इज हिज कॉस्ट। तो सेविंग उसको हो रहा है चार्जिंग की कॉस्ट में, लेकिन यहाँ पर उसको कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर जो है वो बार बार करना पड़ता है। इफ ही यूजेज और ही और शी यूजेज ए लिथियम बैटरी तो वो लिथियम बैटरी 3 साल चलती है। तो लिथियम बैटरी की कॉस्ट अगर मान लीजिए 1.5 गुना है तो वो 3 साल चलेगी तो आपको फिर भी सेविंग होता है। आगे जाके ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि लिथियम बैटरियां 5 साल चलने लगे, बट 5 साल बाद बैटरी तो बदलनी पड़ेगी। सो दैट्स ए मेजर थिंग। तो आई होप आई हैव आंसर्ड योर क्वेश्चन एंड नॉट टेकन टू मच ऑफ योर टाइम।
In mobile phone, we are using lithium batteries, lithium-ion batteries now.
Yeah, mobile uses lithium-ion battery. What we are using is we are using lithium ferrous phosphate rather than LiFo LFP battery, lithium ferrous phosphate rather than lithium ion. So उसका थोड़ा केमिस्ट्री अलग है, वो रोबस्ट होती हैं, शॉक खा सकती हैं, वोल्टेज लेवल्स अलग हैं वगैरह, बट ऑल आर लिथियम। क्योंकि लिथियम के जैसे केमिस्ट्री मतलब उसमें जो दूसरा केमिकल है लिथियम के अलावा वो क्या है, दैट डिफाइंस कि आपका सेल कैसा होगा।
And lithium is easily available to made up of this huge number of batteries.
आई थिंक सो। मतलब लिथियम का नेचर में तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, मतलब ऐसा लिथियम का शॉर्टेज नहीं है कहीं पे, है ना। देयर कुड बी सम शॉर्टेज पॉलिटिकली इन द सेंस कि
all these vehicles and electrical vehicles. So to fabricate or to design this much amount of batteries is maybe one of the limitation for that.
no, the question is not clear to me.
Sir, if we convert all these vehicles into the electrical vehicles in future, so means it may be possible. It may be possible that there may be a deficiency of lithiums. It may be possible that it is not available in a huge amount.
I don't know. I have absolutely no idea because I have plenty of my own problems related to hardware and firmware.
Okay, yes.
So these days I do not, I'm so much focused on my work that I do not go out and read much of the literature or what is happening in the world. I have a feeling that there is no shortage of lithium. There might be a shortage of rare earths.
Okay.
Now rare earths are used in making permanent magnets. And permanent magnets go into BLDC motors or permanent magnet motors, and China is having a monopoly on that.
Okay.
So 90% of the mines of rare earths are so that is a political problem.
Okay.
But that is with rare earths and permanent magnet. But that I have never heard about lithium. कि lithium का shortage होगा. But आपने जो कहा कि if we convert all the petrol vehicles, so the strategy is not to convert all the petrol vehicles. The strategy is to convert in next 10 to 15 or 20 years. So fossil fuel or petrol diesel vehicles or gas CNG vehicles will continue to run for few more years.
10 to 20 years.
It
is required to create the infrastructure and all.
See, our government policies, they start with one policy and then they change. First they said that no vehicle would run for more than 15 years.
Yes.
Right? So आपको हम क्या बोलते हैं जो सर्टिफिकेट है गाड़ी का वो ही नहीं देंगे। मेरी तो उन्होंने पब्लिक के लिए, कमर्शियल व्हीकल्स के लिए उन्होंने वो स्ट्रिक्टली इम्प्लीमेंट कर दिया और हमारे लिए नहीं किया। हमारे प्राइवेट व्हीकल के लिए परमिशन है। सो मैं मेरी कार जाके करवा के ले आया ना। अगर किसी ने अपने ट्रक को 15 साल बहुत बढ़िया चलाया हो सो मे बी प्रोड्यूसिंग डीजल होने की वजह से वो नाइट्रस ऑक्साइड तो नहीं करेगा, वो कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड और पार्टिकल ज़्यादा निकालेगा। तो आप उसे किसी खदान में या शहर के बाहर चला सकते हैं जहाँ पोल्यूशन कम है। तो और किसी नए व्हीकल को बनाने की जगह एक पुराने व्हीकल को रिसाइकल करके और उसका इंजन इंप्रूव करके पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल करके उसको 20 साल चलाया जा सकता है।
Yes.
So, yeah, okay, I'll use the English, right? I'll take care, right? Sorry. So, we are going to use electric vehicle. We foresee electric vehicles being inducted at a certain rate, so that in next 10-15 years, slowly and gradually, a large number of them will replace the petrol vehicles or diesel vehicles. Now, Professor Nima's concern that whether we have sufficient lithium or not will get automatically sorted out in next 5 years when the demand is projected. Right now, if you say, let us dig more lithium or let us bring out more lithium, then the shall we say, the mines owner or the factory owner would say, how many tons, million tons of lithium you want every year? And we say, no, we want only 500 kilo. So he said, sorry, go ahead, go away. So this is what is happening. So at presently, there is not enough market. Even for lithium batteries or lithium cells, there is not enough market. That is another big issue.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yeah, so can we proceed back to the PPT? Okay, thanks. So the vehicle needs these functionalities: battery management, motor control, climate control, locomotion, sensors, vehicle stability, data collection, overall vehicle ownership and management. Now, as I said, there are two types of people who will talk about hardware: those who build the hardware and those who use the hardware or select the hardware. So I'm going to select the hardware. If I'm going to select the hardware, what is my dream hardware? So you have just seen here that all these things have to be done, right? All these things have to be done. So ideally, I would like to have a giant centralized controller board or a giant centralized controller box which perform all these functions, right? This is the, shall we say, one extreme of the architecture, a very fast processor which is controlling and supervising all the function through a powerful RTOS. Then I would like it to connect to all sensors, amplifiers through their native interfaces. Then it is driving all actuators through suitable driver circuits. And in case of, now, this is a box. Now, this box could be kept near the steering. This box could be below the driver's seat. This box could be below the rear seat. Or this box could be in the dicky of the vehicle. So this box could be anywhere. Now, the problem is that the motor controller has to be close to the motor. The steering sensor has to be next to the steering. The pedal sensor has to be inside the pedal, and pedal has to be in the front. So the sensors are geographically distributed and we have no control over them. So if I'm going to put my air conditioner into the front side, then the air conditioner would also have a temperature sensor there. So what it means is that all these sensors have to be put in some kind of a network backbone. And so my dream hardware would like to have a single network backbone which is connecting to distributed sensors. But preferably, I would like all my sensors to be on the same big board where the fast processor is located. And then that fast processor has a hardware encryption decryption facility, and then it has a built-in gateway and over-the-air firmware upgrades. So whatever I need to do in a vehicle, everything is done in a single huge box, which may cost 25,000 rupees, but I don't mind. That's the dream to do. But in reality, we have to make many compromises, because this is something which is very difficult to achieve. So first of all, the user says, I want redundancy. I require multiple masters or multiple nodes. So if something fails, if one thing fails, something else take over. If I'm going to build this kind of a dream hardware, if a single crystal fails and the single processor fails, the whole vehicle comes to a standstill. Now, this might appear to you as a very small catastrophe, but think of an old person. Think of a lady with kids who is driving this vehicle, and she is somewhere 15 kilometers from her home, and it is now 5 p.m. and then there are rainy clouds outside, and the vehicle suddenly fails. and the vehicle fails in such a manner that it fails right into the middle of the road, and she cannot take it on one side also. She has to shut down, come out, request some help, कीजिए भाई please इसको धक्का लगा के side में कीजिए. So that's the kind of a failure. So the single point was failure, a small failure. The probability of small little failures adds up and makes it unsafe. So we require some redundancy. So that's the fun of the thing. So one processor is not good enough. We require multiple processors, multiple masters or multiple nodes. And then second line of defense, that's the second one. And third is that driver convenience requires display, brakes, accelerator, steering. So display is going to be somewhere in front of the eyes. The steering is going to be somewhere near the waist. The brakes are going to be near the feet. So all those things are going to have electronics. So I can't put electronics in one box and hope that it can take care of all those drivers things. So that's why I was looking at a James Bond movie. If you get a chance, please see James Bond movie called Tomorrow Never Dies. This is a very old movie in which Roger Moore or Pierce Brosnan goes to Q. Q is the person who designs and builds the hardware. Q in British Army means quartermaster. So one who provides all kind of weapons and equipments to armies is called quartermaster. So in short, they call him Q. Q gives him a car, a BMW 7, and says this can be driven. He gives him a phone and says now you can open the phone, and the backside there is a tablet kind of an interface, and you can drive a car completely. And if you watch the movie, it is, of course, there is an exaggeration, but that car is a wonderful car, which at least as it is shown, James Bond is able to drive it in any manner, like a professional driver, just by moving his fingers on the pad, on the backside of the phone, right? So that kind of thing is allowed only in movies, and for us, we have to have the standard peripherals which are driving the vehicle, right? So these are the deviation from the dream. So many controllers are deployed, interconnection is required, some sensors on the main board, some are so far, and not only that, if I'm going to buy a sensor which is ready-made, it comes with its own interface, and I have to live with that interface. I cannot dictate terms to the sensor manufacturer. Most actuators are purchased ready-made, and we have to adopt. And then we have to also encase them suitably, so EMI, MC take care, right? So these are the dream. So now if we look at in my dream controller, in my dream hardware, there was a single controller, but if you look at my vehicle, there are actually these many controllers. The first is what we call as a vehicle control unit, which does the overall thing. There's a vehicle telematics unit, which takes data from all the units and send it to cloud. And then there is a motor control, separate processor, battery management, separate processor, instrument cluster, a powerful computer which renders beautiful shall we say displays, which shows you the needles and kilometers and the kmph speed and the total amount of charge and things like that. So some of the cars have infotainment system, so instrument cluster is something like that. Then there is a AC controller, and then there are miscellaneous controllers. When you say I want this functionality here and I don't know how to do it, so you put a small 8-bit controller and they said okay, you'll perform these things. So in reality now I have to select processors for these many applications. Yeah, before we come to the processor, let us look at the variety of the sensors which we require. And each one of the sensors comes with its own distinct. So battery has got its own sensors which monitor its voltage, current, ampere hours, and temperature. I am using a specific device, an imported device, a Chinese device called energy meter. And that energy meter is used for measuring 100 volts DC. The energy meter also measures voltage developed across a 75 millivolt shunt. So it's a giant shunt which can allow 300 amperes to pass through it, and when 300 amperes passes through it, it develops 75 millivolts. Now this energy meter takes that 75 millivolts or millivolts proportional to the current and then converts it into amplifier. So energy meter takes voltage, it takes current, converts that into power, and of course integrates it over time and gives me the energy in watt hour or watt seconds or something. And then this information is available to me on Modbus and Modbus on RS485. So it's not available any other interface. and it is so that works only at 9600 baud. So I have to now have a microcontroller UART port running at 9600 baud, not at 115, 200 or 500,000. My high speed maybe I cannot run it at high speed. I have to run it at 9600 baud, and then that should be made, level controller or bus driver for RS485, and then I have to have a library which takes data from the energy meter. So battery gives data on CAN, motor controller gives data on CAN, and if I don't believe their values, and if I want to have my own independent audit of my power and energy and current, then I must have a Modbus driven. Or somebody says, why don't you buy a current sensor, and the current sensor would come with its own 4 to 20 milliampere interface, right? So that these are the sensors. Then in vehicle body, we will have a door sensor, door open close, seat belt, lamps. So you might turn on lamp and you want to know whether the lamp is on or off. That's one type of sensor. If you want to know how much the current the lamp is there generating, is it drawing the right amount of current or not, then you have a different kind of a sensor. And other kind of a safety in the vehicle body, whether it is tilting or whether it is back on its back or something, accelerometer or magnetometer. Vehicle motion, steering angle, speed, kilometers per hour, and vibration. Is there too much of vibration? Suppose one of your tire is completely flat, so your vehicle is running on 3 tires, so there will be a lot of khad happening, and all that must be recorded. That vibration must be recorded and should be recorded and logged and sent to the cloud, that this is what is the situation in the vibration happening in the motion, in the vehicle motion. In the vehicle stability, attitude, acceleration, rotation. When you say number 4, you are more interested in locomotion, and when you are in number 5, you are more interested in stability. That if the vehicle is becoming unstable, it's likely to fall. So should I reduce the speed, or should I reduce the extent of steering in software, right? So vehicle air conditioning, voltage, current, RPM, temperature, and some more things like what is the total amount of traffic inside, at what rate are we sending data to cloud. Because what happens is, if you go away from the shall we say tower, from the mobile tower, as you go away from the mobile tower, you have to pump more energy. You have to transmit at a higher power in your modem transmitter, modem RF. And sometimes because of the data error, the data has to be sent again and again. So your cloud data rate falls down. So you have to continuously monitor that. And how do we interconnect all these devices? So first and foremost, we start from single processor, come down to 6, 7, 8 processors, and then so many sensors. And so a sensor may have its own processor, right, which is sending data to the network. And then how do I connect? So either I use a centralized approach, a distributed approach, or a mixed approach. So here there is a single controller which will read all the sensors. Now this is the ideal kind of a thing, but then what happens is the master controller or the sensor master sensor gets too many wires and too many cables and requires too many port pins. So your microcontroller must have 50 GPIO lines, or it must have 4 serial ports, or it might need 2 or 3 I2C if you don't want multiple I2C sensor to go on a single bus, right? So you might require 2 SPI or 3 I2C and things like that. And then you may not get desired response in desired deadline. And then, as I said, no modularity. So this is the second one. In this distributed data gathering, we say for every function, put an intelligent controller. For every little thing which you can think of, put a box there, a small box or a big box. And the small box or a big box will have a node controller. And that node controller would pump the data in or out, or absorb the data or pump the data for sensors and actuators. And there would be somebody who would the repository of all the data, or there will be a major master. So they will all be talking to each other, sometimes talking at cross purposes. And we hope that in this distributed data gathering, somehow the whole function gets implemented. Now it uses a simple time sharing network, and here the network is the bottleneck. If I am having too many messages going back and forth between two devices, then in that case, what is needed by, say, A wants to talk to B 10 times a second, and C wants to talk to D 100 times a second. But if they share the same message, and C to D 100 times a second is a higher priority message, if that message doesn't read, you may not be able to brake in time, and the vehicle may go and hit somebody. So we don't want the slow, less priority traffic to clog the high priority, or to stop the high priority traffic from reaching its end. So network, it becomes something which was a boon, a single connectivity thing, it becomes a bottleneck. And then lastly, if network fails, I'll give you a simple example how a network fails. We use a CAN bus. A CAN bus should have a 120 ohms of impedance between the two lines. So that's considered good. But if there are two devices, each having 120 ohm lines, the overall impedance becomes 60 ohms. If there are three devices, it becomes 40 ohms. If there are four devices, 120 ohms in parallel, it becomes 30 ohms. And then certain transmitters or transceivers cannot supply enough current to drive 30 ohm load. So if there is a some single node failure, the entire network goes down. What kind of a node failure is there? A simple thing, a short between the two, or a short between any of the signal wire and ground, or a short between any signal wire and plus 5 volt. So a single network is a boon in a distributed data gathering, but that also becomes its bane, or it becomes its weak point. So we follow something which is so in the distributed, the advantages are there. Sorry, that is flexible, but then you may not get desired response time. And then, as it happens in case of certification, that you had 10 nodes and everything was working fine, and you suddenly added an 11th node, and you start working. Is the steering data reaching the main controller in time? Is the main controller to motor controller command reaching in time? Are we getting sufficient number of samples per second? So these worries, every time a new node is added, you have to test the whole thing once again. Each and everything you have to confirm and test again. And as I said, if you have a single bus, if a hacker can get access to that, you are in trouble, because the hacker can fake the traffic. You have given a command for something to stop, and that unit responds. So the hacker can mask the command, or hacker can fake a response that yes, the command is obeyed while the device has not done it, right? So all kinds of operations will get compromises by if the single bus is gathered, right? And of course, because node controllers, hardware, or the processors are underutilized, overall cost of a distributed data gathering is higher. So what we do is we use a mixed architecture. So we provide one controller to service as many sensors, and then we use high priority task to one controller and low priority to another. And then we connect all MCU by single or multiple buses such as serial CAN or Ethernet. In Tata Motors truck, they had used two CAN buses. So there was a 1 megabit per second CAN bus for locomotion and safety. And there was a 250 kilobits per second CAN bus, a separate CAN bus for body control or for infotainment, or for, shall we say, low priority operations. So they say, if the door is open, we don't want to couple that message on the same bus where the steering or brake or such throttle, such important messages are being sent, right? So that's having multiple buses, right? It is moderately expensive, and it uses many boxes and many power supplies, and it can always provide the desired hard real-time response, right? So we are now coming to the last end of our discussion about the hardware. So initially we began with ESP32 microcontroller, because when we began the design 4 years back, the idea was that to have a single controller which takes the data and sends the cloud through Wi-Fi. So I use ESP32. So that's why that misleading thing went, how to use ESP32 as an edge device, because that's the lecture which I used to give earlier. How ESP32 is a wonderful edge device in case of an IoT, which is for a control application. So we began with ESP32 MCU due to built-in Bluetooth and Wi-Fi radio, and also it was a FCC 14 certified radio. So you don't have to get a separate certification. And it has a multitude of bus controllers It was short on the number of IO lines. It was not approved for automotive grade applications. It's not available to run at 105 degrees Celsius or 125 degrees Celsius. It's not approved for vibration. And it was not available from vertical sources. Now tomorrow, if you want to go to more powerful processor, ESP32 is a 32-bit processor like ARM, but it's not all, means there is no hardware encryption unit in that. So if you want to go to much higher level, or if you want to have an OS, Linux-like OS to run in that, there is no path to migrate. Either you use it or leave it. So what we do is, over a period of time, we decided to use the ARM Cortex M4 chip. As I mentioned earlier, we could use M0, we could use M3, but we chose M4 because it has a hardware encryption unit, and I chose a unit from ST Microsystems, which is having 100-pin MCU, which is having 52 GPIO line and multiple instances of various types of serial interfaces and it has got a built-in hardware CAN controller. So all I need to do is put a small CAN transceiver chip, and it becomes a CAN master or CAN node or CAN receiver and transmitter. Then it comes with 3 pins: 64 pin, 100 pin, 144 pin. So if I want to save some money, then I can use 64 pin. For a smaller application which requires less IO, I can use 64 pin. And if I want to add more IO in future, then I can use 144 pin. So these are the things available. Then if I want to, so this was a Cortex M4 chip. If really I say, what is the need for M4 chip? M4 chip is costing $5. If I use an M0 Plus, then perhaps it may cost me $2.50 or $3 or something. Then I can do that also, because Cortex M0 chip also has got the same pin out, right? So internal processor becomes different. Instruction set may become slightly different, but the GPIO lines are identical. So you can take a M4 chip, desolder it, and solder a M0 chip in the place or M3 chip in the place, because they have an identical pin out. Means PB3 of Cortex M4 would appear on the same pin as PB3 of M3 or PB3 of M0. So migrating in hardware from one chip to another is a piece of cake. Now comes the programming part. So we chose coding in Mbed Studio. There were multiple choices available. So either I can use an IDE which is given by ST Microsystems, or ST Microsystems, above ST Microsystem, there is a ARM organization. So ARM organization is the one which gives license to, or ARM company which gives license to all chip manufacturers like NXP or Microchip. It also gave long time back to Texas Instruments, but now Texas Instruments are ARM are not friendly anymore, right? So ARM came out with their own IDE, and they call it MBED or Mbed. This is the Mbed Studio, and this is available online compiler also, or now they have given an offline Studio IDE which you can run on your desktop. And because there is a big single organization catering to many vendors who use ARM IP, so they created a lot of libraries. Now it can be ported to any ARM MCU from ST Microsystem as well as other vendors. So the biggest advantage is ARM is that when I define an LED as a digital out, then when it is used on M4, it gets compiled separately. When it is used for M0, it gets compiled separately. If it is done for ST, separate compiler is used. For NXP, separate compiler is used. For Microchip, separate compiler is used. So my program remains the same. Then whose botheration is that? Then the botheration is of the studio, Mbed Studio or IDE. So you have to select which manufacturers, which board or which processor you are doing, and automatically the same code which is written in C or C++ can be ported. So that's the thing. But the problem is that this particular microcontroller is still not fully compliant with automotive standards, and whatever processors are available in automotive standards, they are not compliant with Mbed. So that is the worry which which we might have to challenge, which might have to handle as we go ahead. So those which are fully hardware compliant, so fully hardware compliant with automotive standard processors and chipsets are available from NXP ST and Microchip, everybody. But I checked with them, they don't work with embed. You have to go with the manufacturer's dedicated IID. Now, this is one thing which I wanted to discuss, that for vehicle telematics unit, the telematics unit which takes the data from all the other nodes and sends it to the cloud. And we found out that either we go for something like a Raspberry Pi, and or we use something like a Cortex M4 and we use AT command set. So we chose RPi because we did not need many IO lines. It has a USB host. And the best part was that Raspberry Pi, being a USB host, can support 4 USB slaves. And the modem can also run as a USB slave. So I don't have to connect a UART TTL. And I don't have to worry about AT command set, right? So Raspberry Pi under Unix or under Linux directly connects to modem and gets on to internet easily. So it connects to the vehicle network using CAN. So it has a built-in CAN. It doesn't have a built-in CAN controller. So we have to connect a CAN controller and CAN transceiver separately. It sends data through UART to cloud through the modem. It collects GPS data. So this modem has got a GPS also and a GPRS also. Both the things are there. And then it has a local RTC. So it has a local RTC clock. It starts with that local RTC time. Then it goes to somehow connects to internet. And from internet, it gets time. Or from the tower, it gets time. Or from the GPS messages, it gets the universal time coordinates or England's local time. And then it adds 5 hours, 30 minutes to get India standard time. So there are 3 or 4 sources of time once you get connected on internet. But what if you don't get connected to internet? Then the local RTC is available to us. So that's how we chose. And then the best part is that it has got enormous processing power. It's a massive processor. It's a few hundred gigahertz processor with a huge amount of power, speed and memory, and that it encrypts the data before sending to cloud. So any kind of encryption you want, it's available here. Raspberry Pi has got one of the most popular libraries available. So if you want to do something to Azure or AWB, Amazon Web Server, or for IBM Server or Microsoft Server, they will always bring out a library for Raspberry Pi. So you can get quickly and you can securely send data to there and work with their databases. So that was one of the reasons for choosing this processor. If I want to replace this processor by Cortex M4, I can do it. Theoretically, nothing stops me from taking a processor, connecting its serial port to this same modem, this modem through AT command set. The question is, I will have to write the code for all the built-in utilities which the Linux provide. I'll give you one more thing which was very intriguing. Linux takes control of the modem and gets connected to internet. Now, the Linux, being a multitasking or a multi-threading or a multi-program operating system, it can run multiple applications on the top of it, which use the same hardware link. Okay, so you can run a browser, you can run all other services, you can run YouTube browser, or you can get the data from Time, or you can push your data. So multiple applications are running in Raspberry Pi which use the same hardware channel. And if I want to do the same thing for Cortex M4, then I have to provide this multiplexing at higher level, at software level, and that's a big pain. Okay, so running multiple applications on this thing. So that's why choosing MCU for VTU is a very major problem. Choosing MCU for miscellaneous thing was a lot more easier because all of us are comfortable with Uno board, which uses 80 mega 32 processor, and which uses Arduino Mega, which uses 80 mega 2560 processor. Because these chips, these are available, so we can build our own board. We don't have to buy boards which are available from in the market from Arduino, from anybody else. We can make our own PCB, and then we can put a Arduino bootloader in that and program in our own way. And why do we do that? Because for First of all kinds of different beautiful sensors and actuator chips are available which get connected with that. And for each such chip, there is a software library is available. So whatever thing I can do with a sensor board and an actuator board and Arduino, I can put all those ICs into my PCB and still use their software libraries. Right? So that's for smaller other applications. I can use any one of these. So I think I have taken a large part of it. So here are some of the choices of IDE. So you can use IDE or Embed Online Compiler or Embed Desktop. There is a new thing which has come up which people are using for more than last 2 years. Platform IO.
सर वो क्या कर लेंगे सर वीडियो IoT के ऊपर सेमिनार चल रहा है
Serene, please turn off your mic.
यस सर हो गया ज्वाइन
Please turn off your mic.
देखना सुनना समझने की कोशिश करना
Serene, please turn off your mic.
टाइम तो है नहीं अच्छा बता रहा
साउंड इज कमिंग
लिंक किसको भेजा सर ग्रुप में
Sorry sir for disturbance. You can continue.
Yeah. Sorry about having such a long session. We are coming to end of it because our focus is on hardware. So choice of IDE is not something which is great. So we could start with Arduino and go to Embed Online Compiler, Embed Desktop IDE, or the IDE is offered by the chip manufacturer themselves. But you could also use something called Platform IO. Platform IO is something which allows you to choose a board, a manufacturer, a processor, and also the environment. You could say which is going to be the language. What is your GCC compiler? Those things also you can select here. Just a few last slides left, please. This is just to give you an idea what goes into that entire thing. So the vehicle has about 250 to 300 messages which are sent over CAN by 6 to 7 nodes every second. So that will give you a complexity of or the amount of information which is passing through inside that. About 125 parameters are monitored, out of which 50 parameters are sent to cloud every 1 or 2 seconds. Right? So that's the second thing, because whenever we design an IoT, the first question you should ask is how many parameters are there? What is the number of bytes or something, or floats or integers or short integers or characters you want to transmit? And what is the frequency at which you want to transmit? Do you want to send it every 1 second, every 10 seconds, every 30 seconds? And different controllers send relevant input and output parameter to console every 1 second. Now, if I am going to use 7 processors, 7 controllers, then each one of them has got its own development environment and a console. And they are sending some kind of a messages to their console. Now, this is for the technical people. This is for the maintenance people. This is for the repairing people who want to see whether each and every board is working separately or not. So the work continues. We may have to redesign all our hardware as per the ASIL compliant. ASIL is the standard for automobile compliant safety related things. We may have to add and modify hardware and firmware. So we are going to perform some track test and trials, and then some more changes will there. So this was my somewhat lengthy, sorry, because Professor Nima has told me to talk about 1 hour and have a question answer session for half an hour. But I'm sorry I extended the time. So if you have any questions, I would be glad to answer.
Thank you so much, sir. So participant, if you have any doubt, any query related to this session, you can ask. The session is open for this participation.
Yes, sir.
Yes, you can ask.
Yeah. Good afternoon, sir. Sir, I have one doubt. Means I am from the instrumentation background, and we have some transducer or transmitters, which gives 4 to 20 milliampere output. It's a pressure transmitter, level transmitter, and flow transmitter. So if I want to connect it with the controllers, so which controller is best? And if I want to connect with the Raspberry Pi, so whether it is possible?
Okay, Mr. Hasnain Mirza, right?
Ankush Gunda.
Okay, because okay, fine, Mr. Ankush, right. Um First of all, let's talk about the signal. Your signal is 4 to 20 milliamperes. So you have to convert that into voltage because all the microcontrollers eventually need a to D, need to be fed to its A to D converter, right? So you can put a 4 to milliampere, you can put a resistance. Let us say you want to convert 20 milliamperes into 5 volts. Your A
Yes.
to D converter is 0 to 5 volts, right? So you have to find out a R. So that 20 millivolt multiplied by 20 milliampere multiplied by that R gives you 5 ohms, right? So how much that comes to? 5,000 divided by 20 is 250 ohms.
50 ohms. Yes, sir.
So if you put a 250 ohms resistor, resistance to ground, you can convert the current into voltage. This is number one. But if you are a little more sophisticated, you will use an op amp, and the op amp will convert the current into voltage. So you connect this signal directly to the positive terminal of the op amp and the negative terminal of the op amp, and there is in the feedback path you provide this 250 ohm resistance. So the output of the op amp will be 5 volts. And the added advantage would be that the op amp can deliver 10 milliampere, 20 milliampere, 30 milliampere for you to take the signal. Now, this signal you have to put to A to D converter of a microcontroller. If you are using a Raspberry Pi, unfortunately, Raspberry Pi doesn't have an ADC. So you will have to buy a small board, which is called ADC DAC board. I think it has got one ADC channel and 2 DAC channels. And then that gets connected to Raspberry Pi through I2C. So you have to connect 3.3 volt ground, SDA and SCL. These are the 4 lines you have to connect from that board to Raspberry Pi, and you have to feed your signal as an analog input to that board. So then you can convert your pressure transducer to Raspberry Pi. That's one way to do it. Have I answered your question?
Yes, yes. Thank you, sir. Sir, can I execute the PID algorithm by using this Raspberry Pi?
Oh yes, PID algorithm is written in plain simple C language. I mean, you can find a lot of them, and some of them are of a tuning type, adjustable type, and they find their own values and all that. So since it is written in plain C, it can run on any microcontroller which has got a C compiler. And of course, Raspberry Pi has a giant C compiler. The problem you may have is that you may program your Raspberry Pi in Python, because Python is a lot more easier language. And these days people are using, giving you more libraries and what you call sample programs, example programs in Python. So you have to see whether somebody has written a PID controller program in Python or not. I'm sure somebody must have written, but you can do it in Python, and you can do anything you want to do with an Arduino, you can always do in Raspberry Pi. The only problem is two. One is the cost, and other is you have to be conversant with Linux. And Raspberry Pi is not so comfortable in connecting to outside world. So you have to be a little careful, otherwise you will blow something.
Yes, yes. And sir, how I will interface with the mobile? The same data, if I want to monitor and control through the mobile, then how it is possible?
One way to talk between the mobile and the, see, from mobile, most common things which people use is Bluetooth, because there are some ready-made programs available which allow you to talk to devices. So that's one way to do it. First of all, if you are going to do anything on your mobile, you find out what program is available for mobile. There are some programs available which run on Android phones, right? So you have to see that phone, and sometimes there are some wonderful programs which simulate some kind of a serial port or a what is called like a putty. Putty is a serial port or something. So if you have depending upon what kind of interface you have on that program, some of your interface could be 4 switches and 1 or 2 sliders. So your slider will allow you to change an analog, and few switches are there. So these will generate certain codes. Those codes will be received by Bluetooth by Raspberry Pi, and Raspberry Pi will implement your command.
Thank you very much, sir.
Right.
Very informative session, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Hasnan Mirza, you have raised a hand.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, you can ask your query.
Yeah, actually, I'm most of the time working on deep learning and image processing, where how many cameras we can use for the total monitoring of your what they called surroundings. Like I was already saw the what they called uh, Elon Musk's car. It has 8 cameras to monitor the surroundings. Like how many cameras you can suggest for me?
No, see, how many, the number of cameras to be put in an application is decided best by the application itself. I cannot recommend, because if he's putting 8 cameras on his car, definitely he's worried about the safety of it. And anybody would be. It's not a question of only cameras. They would put LiDAR. They would put ultrasonic sensors.
Yes.
So it's up to automobile designer or system designer who will dictate what is needed by safety. You and me should worry how many cameras can be connected to Raspberry Pi. That should be our worry. Suppose theoretically, I have no idea how many, because after all these days the cameras are available with USB interface, right? And theoretically nothing stops us from putting 4 cameras on a desktop PC or 4 cameras to a Raspberry Pi, because after all we need is a USB hub. So I can put 4 cameras or 6 cameras. But the question is, the Raspberry Pi should be able to transact or handle that much of video traffic per second. So let us say it takes 1 megabits per second or 1 megabytes per second or 1 mega samples per second to take a video from 1 camera, suppose. So from 8 cameras or 5 cameras, it's going to be 5 mega samples or 8 mega samples. Now, is your Raspberry Pi capable of handling such a massive amount of traffic? What may happen is that it is able to take the data inside, but either you are short of memory or there is no time left for the processor to do any processing of such a gigantic video load, right? So you might come up with a solution and say Raspberry Pi can handle 2 cameras best, and Raspberry Pi can do the decision on 2 cameras best. So if Elon Musk or his engineers say, I want 8 cameras, then we'll say, all right, we'll put 2 cameras on 1 Raspberry Pi and we'll put 4 such Raspberry Pis. And 4 such Raspberry Pis will communicate over Bluetooth, or they will communicate over Wi-Fi, or they will communicate over CAN bus. And then they will send their data to a master controller in a reduced form and say, I have got obstacle in front of me at such and such distance. So instead of connecting large number of cameras to a single processor and expecting that processor to solve all the problems, it is a good idea to distribute it in a way, right? So technically, when we talk in terms of hardware, we may be able to connect more cameras to a processor, but in an application that may not be enough, right?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Is there any question?
So, Professor Nima, I guess we have come to the end of it. And I wish to thank all the participants for listening patiently, because this got much more extended than what I thought of.
Yes, sir.
So thanks and bye-bye, and wish you best for the rest of the sessions.
Sir, thank you.
Wherever possible, I will also drop in to listen to what other professors are saying.
Okay, sir.
That will be definitely very informative and useful. Right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing this vast knowledge about this system.
Yeah. Goodbye to all.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. So thank you, participants. So this is the end of our second section for day 1. Now we have a next session at 2:30 p.m. by Anirban Rajgupta from IIT Indore. So I request all of you, all the participants, to please join at 2:30 sharp, so that we'll start our session on time. Thank you so much. Now we have lunch time, and after that we'll again meet at 2:30 p.m. Thank you so much.